Welcome to StaarCast, a show about tarot, divination, and all things mystical. StaarCast is a celebration of StarCon, the Southeastern Tarot Artist and Readers Conference. I'm Amy Mauser, and here's your host, Christiana Gaudet.
Thank you, Amy, for that introduction. I am Christiana Gaudet. Welcome, everyone, to a very special episode of StaarCast. Joining me here today is Mary Kay Greer. How are you, Mary?
I'm fine, and Merry Christmas.
Yes, to you as well. Thank you so much for taking time out of your holiday season to spend time with us. And we are over the moon that you are one of the headliners for our first ever StarCon. And we are just so grateful that you will be with us.
Well, a star appeared in the sky and I followed.
Hey, that's kind of a seasonal theme.
Yeah.
So if I can jump right into this, it is so special for me. We've met at conferences at different times and we've had some internet exchanges. But every time I see you, every time I get to speak with you, it is so special to me because, like many people, you are part of my tarot origin story. I remember being, in my early 20s in the bookstore, looking at tarot books and seeing your picture on the back of a book you had written and thinking, here's a person who looks like she knows what she's doing and she is clearly taking this seriously. And, I grew up in a household where you wouldn't take this seriously, right?
Uh-huh.
And so I wanted to ask you, I know I'm not alone in this. Many readers have you as part of their origin story. You have inspired us, you have taught us, and you have helped us understand what the possibilities really are with tarot, even going back to a time when there weren't that many people available. I mean, now there are so many tarot books, but when you first started writing, there wasn't a whole lot. It was you and it was Eden Gray. And Eden Gray was my very first tarot book. So I'm curious to know, what's your origin story? How did tarot come into your life?
Well, Eden Gray is at the center of my origin story, I would say. And I got to meet her at one point, I knelt at her feet. Well, actually, I guess it started when I was in high school because Dark Shadows was on, that was a serial that was on in the afternoons about the time that kids came home from school. So there were a couple of episodes where they were using tarot cards. And I kind of forgot about that. I mean, I noticed it, but it sort of went into the back of my mind. So I was in college at the University of South Florida in Tampa. And home for Christmas. And my very best friend invited me over on Christmas Day, said, come over, let's share what we got. And she shows me this Eden Gray book. No cards, but one of her relatives had sent Tarot Revealed to her. So I'm sitting there looking at this and just feeling envy. I wanted this book. The core of it was that I was an English major and I was studying archetypal criticism. So introduction to Carl Jung. And then also I was reading Joseph Campbell's Hero's Journey, or Man with 1,000 Faces, which is all about his hero's journey. So I was looking at these images and going, oh my gosh, not only can I look for the archetypes in literature, but I can see where they're playing out in people's lives. I can see where they are on their journey, on this hero's journey. It was sort of miraculous to me. So I went on my first spiritual quest, which I borrowed a car that had to be double clutched and had a hole below on the floor under the brake that I had to beware of, and went across town to an old metaphysical bookstore because, of course, that Tampa area has a long history of people coming down from the north during the winter time, and so the spiritualist thing was really there. and got my first Rider-Waite-Smith tarot deck from University Books, and then went back to school and told everybody, you want a reading? So I would sit there with the Eden Gray book, and then as I amassed some other books, but for a long time, just her book. And sometimes read out the meanings from the book, of course, and then got more and more used to the idea of storytelling with it. Because, of course, with pictures on all the cards, you can weave together this story and looking for where the archetypes were playing out in these people's lives.
Wow.
That was it. Yeah.
So what did you expect your career was going to be? As you're going to school there and you're studying English and you're studying the archetypes, at that moment, as you're playing with the cards and having fun, I mean, I'm betting at that moment you did not anticipate that you would become, the great tarot mother of us all. Where did you think you were going?
Well, I figured I probably would end up teaching, even though I wasn't an education major. I took the minimum classes I would need to actually get certified, because English and theater were my real focuses. So then, but within that first year, I decided it was almost like a vow that someday I was going to write a tarot book. I imagined myself in my 60s or 70s writing my life wisdom about the tarot, and that I would teach it as an academic subject in college, which meant that I had to go on and get a master's degree at least.
Wow.
So that spurred me to get a master's degree because I had to teach tarot in college, and which I did for many years.
Wow.
So, yeah. Both in Florida and then in San Francisco once I moved there. So
I have to know more about that. So talk to me. I mean, I've taught tarot in colleges in adult education, but this is not the same thing. You're talking a credited course in tarot in an accredited university. Tell me about those classes.
Well, actually, the credited part didn't come until I got to San Francisco. Okay. Well, when I was in Florida at the what's now University of Central Florida, I was on the staff there. And so I started teaching tarot as a non-academic in the evening, and got written up by the Orlando Sentinel in this big Sunday magazine double-page spread with a glorious photo. Yeah, everybody was kind of, what's this? What's going on? So I think my first class, something like 60 people showed up. And I had no idea what to do. My first class teaching, and suddenly there's all these people, and I'm still newbie at tarot. I don't know what was in my head, but I mean that's the best way to learn. At some point, you just have to plunge in, and the best way to learn is to teach. It forces you to go in depth. So then when I got to San Francisco, I'd already been teaching for tarot for about 2 years then. And I got a job at New College of California, which was soon to be accredited liberal arts college. So the theme of the college, which was started by a Jesuit priest, was learning how to learn. And so actually, if you were a full-time faculty, you had to teach one course a year you had never taught before, because the idea was that you were a learning community and you were using your knowledge about how to learn to help people and yourself go through the whole learning process. So they allowed a lot of strange courses to be taught there, as long as they were taught in a not academic manner. So I taught tarot as an interdisciplinary course that covered art, literature, psychology, even a touch of math with all the probability theory, and history. And so, yeah, it was actually a pretty popular class that I taught for 11 years there. Yeah.
So where in there, first of all, which was your first book, and where in there did that book come?
The first book was Tarot for Yourself, a workbook for personal transformation. And that came directly out of the classes I had been teaching because I would create handouts for homework. And those handouts for homework, which were well tested with lots of students, and so, revised until you couldn't possibly misunderstand something, those became the basis of a lot of the exercises that are in Tarot for Yourself. But it was also because we had a degree completion program for nurses and other medical people that were having to get their BA, where before they didn't have to have a BA. So we had a lot of students that were working professionally full time, and they would just come on weekends to complete their college degree. I was part of the team that designed the program and insisted on having a journal component to it. So in designing and setting up the workshops for doing the journal work, I really got into the whole idea of a personal journal that was self-explorative. And that became the basis of it. The second basis, of course, was Tarot for Yourself, because at that time, all the books said, don't read Tarot for yourself. Never read it for yourself. There were a couple of books that said, well, you can read for yourself. End of story. That was it. Right. So I took all these journal techniques of self-discovery and personal creativity and, human development type of things, and just overlaid the tarot with it. And of course, got to use it with a lot of people in classes. So it made sense to me. It also kind of took it away from the idea that you have to be really objective to read for yourself, and many people can't be, so you really have to go and get readings from other people. I said, well, what if that's a strength, that we can't be objective when we're reading for ourselves? So actually in Tarot for Yourself, a lot of it was looking at all the taboos and saying, taboo means sacred. What if the taboo things really are so powerful that they have to be kept to, the priest and, certain people who are outside of the regular sphere of life? What if we own those? So that was the whole idea, was where is the strength in this? And that's in that you learn about your subjective self. You learn where you lie to yourself. You learn where you're too optimistic. You learn where you're overly pessimistic. And you start being able to see through those things. Helps tremendously when you're working with a client and you hear that same lying to yourself about stuff from them, because you've really worked it through for yourself. It doesn't mean that we're going to stop lying to ourselves, but we can laugh at it. We can go, oh, there it is. Okay, I know. Or I'm being overly pessimistic again. I'm looking at this, let's be realistic to a certain extent in that there's a possibility there, but there's also a range. So let me own that range. And how can I deal with that, the whole range, in the best possible way? What can I learn from the theme rather than taking it as an absolute?
That is so beautiful. And I think just those ideas that you presented in that book really have become, I think a lot of people have sort of played with that and don't necessarily trace back you as the originator of a lot of this. Mm. But I'd say that's why when I have brand new tarot students, I make sure they know who you are. Yeah. Because I really believe that without the work that you did then, where we are now, getting ready for Tarot Conference, we wouldn't be here. You really laid some important groundwork into the work that we all now do. And we are all grateful to you for that. And it's so amazing just to hear the story and how that came about.
Well, one thing about that is that I got tons of letters from people writing saying, you wrote the book I wanted to write. So to a certain extent, I happened to get that book out there at the right time. But it was fomenting. It was coming up through people. So I was just the first person on the block, so to speak, with something that was emerging anyway. It's just like the whole Jungian approach to tarot, which came out of the late 60s. It was emerging from all these different people at the same time, really in the late 60s, and then started being published in 71. That, taking the approach from Carl Jung, which is where I came from with my tarot interest, it was massive.
There's maybe a magical or energetic thing then that happens as we as a collective sort of come to some truth together.
Yes, I really feel that. So I also have a theory that if we lost all the books about tarot, they could be recreated by people coming up and discovering these things anew.
Wow.
Of course, in new ways for new generations,
sure.
But still the central themes and ideas would all be discovered anew because they're there in the cards.
That is beautiful. So speaking of the cards and speaking of origin stories, I'd love to speak with you about the origins of tarot. You also are a respected tarot historian, and there's still, to this day, this question in certain aspects of the community about the origins of tarot. Now, I have always seen you, as well as many others, as being pretty clear and pretty authoritative about how tarot got its start.
Mm-hmm.
And yet there are those who are also speaking about, no, it really did come from Egypt, or it really did have mystical origins, or it really did come from the Cathars.
Mm-hmm.
What do you say about that? Or what do you say to those people? What do you think about that?
Well, show me the evidence. Let's look at the evidence. And is it by analogy that they must have known this because they had these thoughts and expressed ideas that we can find in the cards, or not? And or just because it makes sense, it's like it rings a bell. And I know that for me, there were times when there was that sense of ringing a bell. Am I going, I've got it. And then over time, realizing, no, that doesn't really stand up historically. So for me, there's the difference between the historical tarot and the mythic origin stories. Mm-hmm. I find them both incredibly powerful. So I don't want to let go of the mythic origin stories and just push them off as junk. Because myth, I'm a Jungian, myth is central to our psyche, our psychology. And that's why we go, this is it, because it resonates with something inside of us. But we need to be able to separate it from the facts and the true historical background, which is important in its own right. And, very valuable. So I'm really an advocate of both, as long as we can keep them, understand them as separate modes.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. And, that's so interesting when you think about that sense, when you get that sense of, oh, this is truth. And then you find out that it's not truth.
Yeah.
And what do you do with that? To give it this, okay, well, the myth is important. I recognize it's a myth, but it's an important myth.
Yes.
I think our current society could learn a lot by understanding that method of what is truth and what is myth and why is myth important.
Yeah. Well, we go back to the Jungians and Campbell. I don't remember exactly who first said this, but a myth is a lie on the outside and truth on the inside. And facts are true on the outside and a lie on the inside, because there's always more to the story in the facts than what we actually have, out there. And it doesn't always touch on the emotional level of the people that are living in the experience. So the myth tends to touch more on that emotional content and really speaks to our psyche and all the complexes that we have inside. Those great themes throughout history and that come up in literature and song and plays and movies. Yeah. So, we need to honor both. But, the Cathar stories and the Egypt, I've been to Egypt twice, and you can find the archetypal themes there. I've got a wonderful picture of what looks almost exactly like the magician at his table. It's, extraordinary. And then there's a hallway where there's statues on either side, and most of them are gone. So we just have to imagine in our heads that, there's like 20, or there may even be 22 of them. But there's nowhere in Egyptian stories or mythology or imagery that there's a sequence that follows the tarot sequence. That's because the tarot are these great archetypal ideas that appear in every culture in some form or another, but not always in the sequence that comes up in the tarot, which is important if you're relating it to astrology, Kabbalah, which were added on later.
Right.
Because again, these are these same themes that keep appearing, because they're in our human consciousness, our psyches, our, psychic DNA.
Love that. So let me switch gears for a minute and ask you a personal question.
Yeah.
I follow you on social media, and I noticed that you are a huge fan of the K-pop group BTS.
Yes, I am.
Talk to us about that.
Well, I kind of came up with them about 2 years ago. I was late to the party. But I had been following K-dramas. I really enjoy the Korean TV series.
Mm-hmm.
And so one day I just for a lark, I put in Korea and Jung into the Google search engine. And the first thing that came up was BTS.
Wow.
And I went, what is going on here? They had just come out with an album 3 albums ago, Map of the Soul, Persona. I'm going, Persona?
Ooh.
So it was all based on Murray Stein's book, Map of the Soul, which is an explication of Jung's basic ideas, his core ideas. So BTS, they write many of their own lyrics, and they were writing about the issues of the persona, the social face that we put on, which of course as celebrities, that's what they have to live so much of their life, and they can't betray it. They can't, it's all this made up sense of who they are that we accept, and that they struggle with themselves. Who are they? If you go for years as this persona, who are you really? So, as I looked into it, it turned out that Murray Stein, who had written the book, got contacted, of course, right away by several Jungians and gave these long podcasts about the significance of all their songs. And I'm just eating it up. And plus the fact that as I started listening to the songs, they really resonated with me. And that's one of the things I'm realizing about music is that, I have my friends listen to it and they go, yeah, it's okay. And I'm going, what? It's not resonating through your whole body. It's not. So there is something about finding the music that actually affects you at a cellular level that can bring great joy and happiness to your life. But as I followed, their second album was Map of the Soul 7, which had to do with their 7 years, and there's 7 of them. But it was the focus on the shadow and the ego.
Mm.
And then I looked at some of their other pieces where I found all this Jungian, or not Jungian, tarot symbolism, primarily their song Blood, Sweat, and Tears, which has, I actually made a list here. It's got symbolism that I think anybody could see if they were actually looking. The Emperor, the Hangman, Judgment, the Wheel, the High Priestess, Temperance, the 2 and 8 of Swords, the Ace of Cups, the Fool.
Wow.
All of those symbols are there. And I don't think they were deliberately putting in tarot symbols. Again, it's these archetypal ideas that they were expressing. And their tarot ideas. Plus, the whole song has references to Hermann Hesse's theories and Nietzsche and Bruegel's paintings. And yeah, so one of the things about BTS is that you can go down the rabbit hole of all these layers and layers and layers of symbolism and meaning in their work. And that's before you even get into looking at the English translations of the lyrics, which I understand from the Korean point of view, they really are amazing because of the plays on words and other things that we don't get in the English. We can't understand, and they're allusions. So they're very sophisticated writers of lyrics. And that even comes out in the English, but not to the level that a Korean can enjoy it.
Wow.
So yeah, South Korean group that is now the biggest group in the world.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, they are amazing. They're writing songs about the coronavirus that are meant to be healing and uplifting for everyone. And everybody around the world is just responding to this because they bring joy and happiness and a sense of hope and connection, because all of the fans, ARMY as they're known, around the world, really feel kinship with each other. So we've got this kinship all around the world. Yeah. So, by the way, BTS stands for Bangtanso년단, which is Bulletproof Boy Scouts. If you want something that sounds so opposite, they started out as a hip hop group and they've just explored practically every form, genre of music that they try to integrate into their musical scores.
Wow, that is so great. So let's talk about StarCon.
Yeah.
In normal times, you travel the world. You're a featured presenter at tarot conferences. I follow you on social media. I saw you in China. I saw you in Israel, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, virtually, we will be together at StarCon in January.
Yeah.
When we talk, though, about, normal times, you're packing your suitcase, you're getting on airplanes to go present. How is that for you now? I mean, you've been doing it for years. I remember you at the old ATA conventions back in the late 90s.
Yeah.
This has been going on for a long time now, and it's just growing, and that's a wonderful thing. But what do you think about convention? We don't call them conventions anymore. We call them conferences. What do you think about the conferences? What makes a good conference? How do you enjoy a conference?
Well, first off, I love the travel. I should say that. I'm an Army brat, and I've been staying in California for a long time. So I keep my wandering under that. And then when I travel to all these conferences, I often stay with people locally rather than just in hotels. And it's a chance to connect even deeper with like-minded people, my tribe. Mm-hmm. And then at the conference, Old Home Week, right. Plus constantly new people coming in. And one of the things that I think I've been part of, but it really comes out so much of, I think, the tarot mentality is that the tendency to really welcome newcomers. That we reach out and say, "Oh, you love tarot too. Oh, you come sit down with us. Yeah, tell us, about your journey." So, at all these different conferences, there's a sense of kinship, even when we've never met before, even when it's somebody who has just picked up their first deck and is opening it up. That brings this sense of you see it too. You find that connection also, and how does it play out in your life? So the conversations are phenomenal. The teaching, I mean, I've been a teacher since, back in the 70s, early 70s. And some of the finest teaching, experientially oriented, where we're doing things. But even when there's a lecture that goes into the symbolism of the cards, it's like, the knowledge, the wisdom that's part of this, that brings all of these different, mythic, cultural imagery and ideas together, is just so amazing to me. So it's all the things that I've always loved, the lectures that I've most enjoyed in my life, no matter what I'm studying. And when I go to tarot conferences, it's all there.
Wow. That makes me so happy. I think there was a part of me that just wondered after all this time if it ever gets old for you. And I know, I mean, I've been doing, this work full time for 30 years now almost, and it has not yet gotten old for me. But I guess that's the same for you. It does not get old.
Well, it doesn't get old partly because there's always new aspects to tarot that I'm discovering or somebody else turns me on to. And I spend time with it. And at one point, I was lamenting the fact that I don't do really predictive fortune-telling readings and that's not a skill. And I've always felt like I should push myself to develop whatever my weakest area is. But I just couldn't use tarot that way. And I picked up a deck I had had for years and tried several times to work with, which was the Lenormand deck. This was like 7-8 years ago. And went to a conference, and coming back from it at the airport, I'm sitting next to this woman and she says, "Oh, you were at the conference?" And I go, "Yes." And she says, "Yes, it was my first time I came. I've always read Lenormand cards." So, wait, I was just trying to remember. I mean, she's somebody I really know, and suddenly the name went out of my head, which of course it always does at times like this, because it's somebody I know so well. Raina George.
It was Raina George. I was going to say
yes.
That sounds like Raina.
Yes. So the next, this was Reader's Studio in New York. The next year she came back and she connected with quite a few people about the Lenormand deck. And there were all these people who had simultaneously gotten interested in it. So we were going around the whole conference, reading with everybody, doing these fabulous Lenormand readings and, learning from her who had been doing it since she was a young child in Lebanon. And so, yeah, it was just those kind of magical things that I got really deep into it, connecting with her and seeing how it actually plays out from somebody who really knew the traditional style of reading.
Wow.
And
you now have become something of a Lenormand expert. Is that not true?
I would consider myself that stage where when you really want to learn something, you start teaching it. So I'm still, after 7 years, 7-8 years of studying it, and years before where I tried doing it, I still don't consider myself a real expert at it because it's not my main thing that I do day in, day out. But it's something I really love and I feel comfortable with. If I'm doing a reading for someone and we do this, deep personal insight work, and then at the end they go, "But is this going to happen?" I pull out my Lenormand cards and I say, "Let's see what they say." Something quick, very concrete, goes right to the point, gives us a very straightforward answer. And yeah. And then sometimes I do full readings for people with, a complete grand tableau on occasion. Yeah. And sure. Short readings a lot. Yeah.
Sure. So I'm going to ask you one more question about StarCon. But before I do, you just said something that sparked another question for me. What is your day-to-day tarot life like? Are you doing readings? Are you writing? Are you working on another book? Is it different every day? What are you doing?
It's different every day. I'm terrible at keeping a really consistent practice. So for other people that have that problem, periodically when I've been teaching, I've told people to do daily readings for at least 3 months to see how that process works out, and preferably for a year. I think I've managed maybe 3 months at the most, a couple of times, where I was consistent every day doing that. And it's a wonderful, wonderful practice to do. You learn so much by it. And I've done it for periods a little more sporadically, of course, over a year or more. But nowadays, I'm supposed to be writing a book. It's been hard with the coronavirus and a lot of things happening. But it's part of what I do all the time because of teaching the classes and doing readings, which I don't do huge amounts, but I do enough to, keep that focus and that enthusiasm that happens with it, the wonderful things that happen in readings for people. So it's kind of like I'm always making those associations when I watch a video or something. I'm associating with, the cards and the storyline. When I have planning to do, I pull out cards. Just before we started today, I pulled up cards for, what I needed to pay attention to. So I know there's always things that I have to that I keep going in my life. New decks come in, and so I do the readings for what's the relationship between me and this deck. What does it have to offer me when a new deck comes in?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you have a particular new deck that you're really liking right now?
Quite a few. Yeah. So the Tarot Seekers, the Lionsgate Tarot, what is it? Intuitive. I always have trouble remembering the name of this one. The book's right over there, so that's what I'm looking at. The Intuitive Tarot, something like that. I won't try and get it. I'll follow all over everything. But yeah, there's so many decks that are coming out now. It's overwhelming, and I can't buy them all, and so I'm trying not to spend all my money on tarot decks.
Yeah, we all have that problem. So I've heard a concern from some people that, you mentioned that there are so many new decks, such a proliferation of tarot.
Yeah.
Some people have been concerned that it's somehow going to get lost in all of that. Your thoughts?
Yeah. Well, there is that whole thing of people who feel that they can pick up a deck and just relate to it automatically and suddenly be a tarot reader and start professionally offering their services online. Oh, wait, I can make lots of money.
Yeah, right.
I feel that people start anywhere that somebody starts with tarot is fine. Whatever gets your foot wet, go for it. But I mean, I've been doing this for 52 years, and I really respect the people who come to a deep understanding of tarot. It doesn't have to look like mine, but have committed and really developed that and developed themselves as readers by studying not just tarot, but studying psychology, studying, the human potential movement, doing visualizations, meditation, all of this deep work that adds to that. So I respect when somebody has done that. For somebody who just looks at the cards, you can have, I think everybody who has gotten into the tarot seriously has had this phenomenon where within the first couple of readings they ever did, they had something that was so shockingly apparent and right on. And it's kind of like beginner's luck in a way. Everything falls into place. It blows your mind. It blows the person you're reading for, their mind. And you're going around, oh my gosh, that's how we get hooked in because it's so apparent. And then there's a tendency to say, oh, I'm a magical tarot reader. I can tell people all these things they didn't know, and it's all going to turn out right. No, you're going to run into lots of times when you have no idea what to do in those circumstances and situations. And we learn from those, but you need to, at that point, go out and get the skills that you need to do. What happens when you look at a card and suddenly your mind goes blank and you have no idea of what it means?
Right.
Where do you go from there? So there's lots of training and things that are going to give you the solid skills to be consistently, I don't want to say accurate, because to me, it's not about accuracy. It's about how to go deep and how to help a person find meaning in their experience. Something that will help them meet whatever comes in a way that is helps their growth and their personal insight and their sense that they've actually done the best that could be done in the circumstances.
Absolutely.
So for me, that's what it's about. Not that I was absolutely accurate about, in 6 months, you're going to meet your soulmate.
Right.
I've had people come back to me and said, you were right on the timing. I go, I told you it was just experiment. You really want to know a time? I used the system. It worked great. But, I almost wish it didn't happen, because don't come to me with that expectation that I'm going to tell you all these exact dates when something exactly that you want is going to happen.
Right. Absolutely. So can you give us a little teaser about what you're going to be teaching us at StarCon?
Oh, well, we're going to go in depth into the Hangman card. It's something that I really enjoy doing, and I don't always have the time to put it together, is really going as deep as possible into a card and the symbolism. And I tend to focus on the Rider-Waite-Smith deck because it brings together the classical analogies that we find from 15th century Northern Italy, where the cards first emerged, early Renaissance, pre-Renaissance, High Gothic. Anyway, it brings together that with the whole occult and metaphysical themes that are encoded into the cards, the astrology, the Kabbalah, and so on. And so it makes a real rich mix that works very well psychologically. Also, it points very well to a lot of mythologies that we can use in the storytelling. So when I can go really, really deep into a card and explore all of these potentials and possibilities, I think that's just one of the best things to do. So the Hangman has this whole range of meanings that is wonderful to explore. And Waite's actual intent for the Hangman is known to very few people. And so I want to bring that out because it's quite different than what we think.
Wow. So interesting. So exciting. My dad was a minister. I grew up in a spiritual household, if you will. And he used to talk a lot about the process of exegesis, the deep study of sacred text.
Yeah.
And it sounds a lot like what we're going to be doing is exegesis with the Hanged Man.
Yeah, we do. A little hint of not what I'm going to do with the Hangman, but that exegesis thing is I've got 3 posts on my blog about the Ace of Cups, 3 long posts going into all the symbolism and meaning of the Ace of Cups. That just gives you a hint of how deep I can go.
And so that's a good segue in. If people want to read your blog, if they want your books, if they want to learn more about you, how can they do that?
They can go to my blog and look through all of that. I've got sort of roughly categorized. So you can look at history or you can look at individual cards. And then Facebook, where you're going to get a mix of tarot, politics, and BTS. And I've got an Instagram page too, where I try to mostly put on photographs and then say what I'm doing.
Great. And what's your URL for your blog?
MaryKGreer.com.
Easy enough. Perfect.
Yeah.
Hey, do you happen to have a tarot deck right there?
Yes.
That's what you do. I do too. So in closing today, I would love it if we could each pull one card in anticipation of StarCon.
Ooh.
And just see what comes up and interpret those cards. And that will be our way of closing today. Is that all right?
Yeah, that's great.
Very good. So I'll let you shuffle and pull a card, and I'll shuffle and pull a card, and you can tell me if you want to share first or second.
Oh, I got Judgment. So,
oh, very good Judgment.
There we go. Well, this card has more people in it than any other card in the Rider-Waite-Smith deck.
Oh,
so that really speaks to people, and they're actually supposedly in coffins here. But that would be all of us in our own individual little homes.
all coming together with the voice of the angel.
Yes. So all of us who are speaking and presenting are these, the angel with our horns, putting that out and The cross on there's the healing aspect of us all coming together, the Red Cross healing, but it's also coming to a crossroads, because I think one of the things that happens at conferences is that we often get inspired to go in a new direction. We reach a crossroads where we realize, oh, we've been stuck, or this or that happened, and we get a new sense of potential and possibility. So I think that's there. We hear a call. And so all of us from all over, and coming up that kind of the subconscious work that we are doing, because when you're there and you're pulling your own cards, you're actually able to access things in your subconscious, things that you weren't aware of, or you weren't aware of how they were important at this time. And that comes up so much in conferences where you're working with the cards as you're going through the talks. Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. So I'm working today with Spiral Tarot, and I was going to say, Mary, you're not going to believe this, but you'll believe it. It is the Hanged Man.
Oh, wow. I get to hear what you're going to say about it. Yes.
So, okay. So, I mean, obviously, it's really cool because that's the topic of your headline presentation, obviously. Yes. So that's awesome. And we love it when tarot is just so, here we are, you know, we're just saying what is. But for me, you know, the Hanged Man is one of my favorite cards. And I'm really looking forward to your class, because I'm sure I'm going to learn a lot that I don't know. But for me, I have always associated, you know, looking at this person who is hung in this really uncomfortable position that he probably doesn't want to be in, but he can't do anything about it. And so in it, he finds enlightenment. And I think about this even in my own personal journey with StarCon. I have been wanting to produce a tarot conference for the past 10 years. And it's always been, no, don't do that. That's a bad idea. You're buying yourself another job. It's a bad idea. You're busy enough. And then I went to Newt's, which I think was the last time I saw you in person, was at Newt's, not the last Newt's, but the Newt's before. And coming home from that, I was like, nope, got to do it. And there had been a bunch of people whispering in my ear, Ciro Marchetti, Lisa Hunt, Mitchell Osborne, a bunch of people, you know, just the Florida peeps saying.
I was going to say the Florida contingent.
Right, exactly. Saying Beverly Frabel is another. Yeah. You know, we should do this. We should make this happen. And so finally I was like, okay, fine, let's do it. So we plan it a year and a half in advance. We start planning it. We get the hotel. We do all of that. And then COVID comes. Mm-hmm. And then we sit on that for a minute thinking, well, will COVID be gone in time? And then eventually it's like, no, it's not going to be. So what do we do? Do we cancel? Do we postpone? Do we pivot to online? And when I look at that with the Hanged Man, there it is. You know, there we are, hung in this position that none of us want to be in. So what do? We use it to our advantage, and we find enlightenment within it. And that's what we do. Yeah. Now, I really like yoga. I can't say that I'm a huge practitioner, but I love to practice yoga. And for me, this is the card of yoga, too. And just to have this very yogic perspective of just show up for what it is. Don't wish that it were different. It'll be different next year, and that'll be fine. But, you know, when you're in yoga, you experience each posture the way you experience it. You know, it may be painful. You may not be able to do it. You may love it, but you just experience, you show up for the experience. Yeah. And so I see a lot of that in the Hanged Man as well. So that was, you know, very much the personal journey of what it is to, you know, go from imagining how awesome it's going to be in these rooms with all of these people and being able to hug them and have a drink with them, to how awesome it's going to be with all of these people all over the world at a time when we've been really isolated in a situation that we did not create. And how much enlightenment and peace and healing we're going to be able to find together from that.
Oh, that's so wonderful. Yes. There's that point of being so stuck that you really feel like you're absolutely not going anywhere. What I found in writing and looking at a tarot card that I can't get is the more you get really stuck, and then there's this feeling of, oh, I think I finally hit bottom. Have I? And then everything opens up. Yeah. And that's so perfect the way you describe that as being that hangman experience. The enlightenment comes, and it comes often at those worst moments.
Yes, it does. Absolutely. Mary Kay Greer, I want to thank you so much for being my guest today on StarCast. I want to wish you the absolute most happy holiday season, the best new year, and we cannot wait to see you at StarCon Online 2021.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. That's been really wonderful.
Thanks for joining us for StarCast. For more information about our annual conference, visit us online at starcon.com. That's StaarCon.com. We are looking forward to seeing you in January.